I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Benjelloun Oussama, the founder and CEO of OrboFi. Benji, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Ashton. It's a genuine pleasure to be here.
Likewise, excited to dive into your insights into AI, asset creation using AI, which I think is the future, and we're just getting started with it, and I feel like this is a great time to be talking about this. I'd love to start off our conversation with a little bit on your personal background in AI and blockchain, and then we'll dive into OrboFi after that.
Absolutely. That's something that we're saying at OrboFi, we're extremely excited about. But in terms of some background, so I've been in crypto for the past 6 years. Literally was one of the first teams working on NFT use cases early 2017. Later on, moved to decentralized cloud computing, and fast forward, here we are building, AI engines powered by decentralized infrastructure. But the main goal is that, we want to empower people with tools and with creative tools, all AI powered. They just enable people to create content better and faster and democratize AI content creation for the masses. That gives like a broader idea about what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting when ChatGPT was released to the public. People sort of got that initial glimpse at what AI can create, and I think even that first little alpha version they created, where it's just responding with text, was very exciting. But I feel like once people see the potential of pictures, video, all these other assets, you can create movies in seconds. It's going to blow people's minds. So
exactly.
What is the exact focus that you and your team have built around this at OrboFi?
Absolutely. So, and you mentioned, for example, ChatGPT is a great example. And if you look at Stable Diffusion, the core diffusion model that actually, took off, and it really, I'd say, illustrated the use case. But pretty much, at OrboFi, we focus mainly on visual content. And this is something really important, like creating literally entire movies with text in a few seconds, or creating full-blown virtual environments, 3D virtual environments with text. Even perhaps, and it's part of the roadmap, is that creating even entire video games with text. And that's what we mean by content creation, is that content and virtual content can be anything from a 2D image, a 3D asset, a sound, an animation, an entire video clip, or an entire game. And it's all powered by a different diffusion model. And at the core, it's powered by transformers, which is at the core of what AI is, and same thing what powers ChatGPT. And we're going to be looking at this technology that's moving forward really fast. But the end goal is that anyone in the world, anyone with a phone, regardless of how remote they are and how remote they are located, just with internet connectivity, they can create full-blown entire virtual content experiences. And it's all thanks to this kind of technology. And that's something that we're really, really excited about.
Mm-hmm. It's very exciting. And I feel like it's growing very quickly. We've been speaking about AI and how it's going to take over content creation and all these other facets of the internet for a few years, but wasn't until I feel like January 1st of this year when it sort of became real. I'm curious on how long you've been following it, and then how long your team has been working on this at OrboFi.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, we started OrboFi about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And we've had different iterations. My co-founder Samuel and the co-founder Kevin, who was an ex-Ubisoft, they've been working in the space for years, and building AI apps for years, merging that with games primarily. Even before January, like we've actually started releasing generative AI features even back in August last year. Mm-hmm. And that's when we really saw that, yeah, we do have an edge here. We do have something that actually solves a problem. And people actually like it. Like, why not just focus entirely on it? So we had different iterative processes to get to the point where OrboFi is at the moment, especially in terms of product perspective. But it did take us a while to find exactly the right sweet spot. I would not call it product market fit, but at least in terms of what people need and what people want. Mm-hmm. This is part of the process, right? And thankfully, right now, OrboFi has so far 95,000 users. That is, that use the product at least once. Yeah, it's thankfully, and humbly saying is that literally OrboFi is the most used AI engine, at least in the Web3 space. At least when it comes to the number of users and individuals that use the product, and as well as in terms of the number of assets created and on the hub. So far, it's about 25 million assets already on OrboFi.com.
Wow.
So we've been growing quickly, and thanks again to this great timing. Everyone's talking about AI and generative AI, so thankfully the timing was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very exciting. And how easy is it for people that they may have not even tried these chatbots in AI, if they want to start creating assets, photos, or videos? How easy is it to just go to OrboFi and start?
Absolutely, it is extremely easy, and that's the beauty of it. Is that literally, of course, you just have to log in real quick, and you articulate your imagination, and this is the beauty of it. And sometimes it can get very addictive. You're like, let me try it first. Give me a 3D character of a panda wearing, I don't know, samurai armor. And you're like, oh, wow. And you keep going. And that's what we get. Like, it actually gets addictive. But the primary reason why is that the system understands what you want to create. And people feel that, oh, wow, I can actually articulate my imagination and make it real. But it's extremely easy to use. People need to log in and generate assets. Of course, like you may ask, like, how does it even relate to blockchain? That here we empower people to tokenize their assets as NFTs. They can create a full-blown NFT collection in like a couple of minutes. Well, normally it takes up to a month or two to design the asset, design the art, create the smart contract for it. Now it takes 2 minutes. It's extremely easy.
That's awesome. And I feel like being early on, a lot of these tech-savvy users are already involved in some of these other technologies like NFTs or the Web3 gaming communities. Is that where you're seeing the most early adoption of the advanced users that are already familiar with NFTs for a few years, now just using AI to make it easier to create the assets that they were working on manually before?
Yeah, good question. I'd say so far, if you look at all our user base, I'd say most of them are like two people. That pretty much, but two people, of course, there are like some Web3 people, crypto folks, but pretty much consumers. Consumers who have never been able to create any kind of piece of art, any kind of visual content, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I could create this amazing game asset, like media asset in 10 seconds. And that's if we look at the exponential growth of AI assets just in the past year, it's all thanks to consumers all over the world. We're all also seeing, some crypto native folks who are like, oh, you know what? I want to create my own NFT collection. So we're also seeing, part of like the user base, and we also see some game developers that do not know how to generate a certain art concept, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, let me articulate my imagination. Let me make it real. And then so we see like all kind of people using the product as of now, but between mostly consumers and developers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting, and I feel like creating these assets for gaming ecosystems will be huge. And there's been a lot of discussion around Web3 moving into the gaming ecosystem, with NFTs or with real-world trading, cross assets between games, which I think is very exciting. But I've also seen some hesitancy from the AAA games that already have millions of users. How do they take an approach that's not too drastic into NFTs and Web3 without hurting their current user base and their revenue streams? Where do you sort of see Web3 gaming moving into Web2 gaming? Is it now with this technology it's a good fit, or how long will it take until we see Call of Duty and all these major games actually adopt this technology?
Absolutely, I would say, especially when it comes to these big franchises and big gaming studios, I would say perhaps in about 3 to 4 years max. And I mean, just to be, cautious, to be, I would say, not even optimistic, like negative, I would say like 4 years. Especially when we look at Ubisoft recently, there will be tokenizing some assets, part of the Assassin's Creed game. So especially, I mean, Ubisoft is one of the main, if not one of the only big publisher that is actually moving into NFTs. If you look, for example, at Rockstar or some other like big franchises, big studios, they're still very reluctant. They still want to move away from it. But I mean, it's actually the same thing with generative AI. Mm-hmm. For example, like big studios, they don't like it that much, and the reason why is it actually is like diminishes the value of human-made art. Where pretty much all the sweat that artists put into the work to create a single character now, somewhere in an island with a phone, can create a similar quality asset. it's the same way, when painters had to suffer the kind of transition when photography came in. So we're seeing this kind of thing, this kind of like cycle again, but it will have to adopt because the technology actually really helps in terms of speed, cost, efficiency. So I'll take like 2 to 3 years for the average game studios to get into generative AI and Web3 as well for to merge into NFTs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point, Benji. It is a lot of work to create those game characters by hand and sketching and drawing that they do, and to have it done in 0.5 seconds from AI, it can be diminishing. But I feel like it's not going away, and they need to determine the timing of how are we actually going to implement this. It's like some schools are trying to ban ChatGPT and AI because it's cheating. But actually, if it's going to be here, then eventually they're going to need to change the way that they do business to incorporate this technology. So do the smart game studios start getting on it right away, or plan that perfect timing? Because I feel like if they wait too long, then they're going to be left behind, and everybody else will be moving into Web3 gaming, and they might suffer in the long run.
Yes, yeah. And this part of a cycle that we're going to be seeing, but they will have to adopt it. They will have to adopt the technology. And yes, some people would say, "Oh, it is not fair. I've spent 10 years learning the skills to create an asset, a character, and now it is not fair." But even artists and even game asset creators, even media asset creators, that perhaps those people who actually utilize and leverage AI systems can do their jobs better. And it's the same way. So anyone just have to leverage the technology in terms of increase and improve efficiency. And this is the core of what I believe humankind has to thrive in. It's just how do we improve that efficiency? And pretty much, we as humans, pretty much what we do is that we are tool makers. What kind of tools are we going to be built that will improve our lives? And generative AI is a great example of this kind of transition. Just as a statement, we as human beings as being great tool makers to improve our lives. And we're going to be seeing this kind of cycle step by step into really a broad adoption. And that's what we want to do. Literally just expand this kind of technology and our tool to as many millions of people as we can. Improve their productivity, and just enable them to power their imagination in real time. So we do have a long way to go, but it's exciting.
Very exciting. I feel like it will be as popular as people using Google search. Everyone will be using it. So,
yes.
So Benji, with OrboFi, as we get to that climax where everyone is using generative AI, how do you and your team stay on top of the industry and create a competitive advantage so that people are using OrboFi to generate their assets and not, I'm sure, all of the other generative AI platforms that will come in the years to come? How do you create a competitive advantage?
Absolutely. So I'd say, and we spend a lot of time thinking about that, designing the architecture properly. Especially if we look at, there are two ways, Web2 generative AI apps and Web3 generative AI apps. Thankfully, if we look at Web3, currently, and humbly saying, we are dominating the space, at least in terms of the number of users and in terms of the quality of the models. And thanks to our engineering team, we built incredible AI models that generate so far the best quality they can get, at least in the Web3 space. If we look at Web2, especially as Midjourney, we're not as good as Midjourney V4, but OrboFi models are as good as Midjourney V3. So, and we still have some way to go. But in terms of the main competitive advantage is that since we are empowering people to not only create assets, but as well as monetize them. And that's why even we have integrated with Google to enable that seamless and trustless monetization system. And that's one thing, is that in a few seconds, you can make your assets as NFTs and be able to monetize them. The second thing is that, especially if we compare it to Midjourney or some other tools, that since you can only generate 2D images, for us, we are multi-content pretty much. You can generate from 2D assets, 3D sounds, animations, even down the line, 3D words. And that's pretty much covering any kind of visual content. But the core, let's say the main difference is that where anyone can create and train his own AI model. And that's, I would say, the other and the core competitive advantage is that I can create my own AI model and I can monetize it. And that's we call them factories, and pretty much part of that virtual production part, where anyone can become a virtual factory owner. That is the translate to a fine-tuned AI model. Is that, for example, my factory does great 3D assets of Samurais, 3D Samurais. I don't know why I'm saying Samurais. I love Samurais, by the way. But like any kind of like characters, environments, wearables, pretty much anything virtual content can be sort of packaged and fine-tuned into an AI model that anyone can create easily and anyone can monetize. So these are the core competitive advantage that we have. And of course, we will bet on them even more and we expand on them. So and of course we have some really good features coming in the pipeline. We'll be releasing the API soon, so that as well other Web2 and Web3 developers can integrate the API into their apps. So that's quite exciting. Basically, us I want to call it infiltrating, but integrating with as many apps as we can. Just like to have that engine working properly, seamlessly across many different applications. And yeah, we will be releasing soon in terms of some more information regarding some celebrities that we work with. And pretty much we are actually soon announcing literally the world's first licensed and branded AI model. And that's in collaboration in partnership with a Hollywood actor. Pretty much the first time you will see an actual IP being trained in a licensed way, being trained on an AI model that his fan, his audience can use. But yeah, really cool use cases. But yeah, so that gives a broader view in terms of how we are competing with the broader scope in the Web2 and not just in Web3.
Very exciting, lots to come. And what you focused on there about the monetization, I feel like is a huge competitive advantage, adds exponential value to be able to, seamlessly, when you're creating the asset, tokenize it and then monetize it, especially for these creators that are, all the struggling artists in the world that just want to build a living and they have the talent needed to create art, whether it's manually or digitally, to be able to monetize the process. A lot of artists, they want support on the business side as well. I feel like that's a huge bonus.
Yes, and that's something that really excites us. And especially when we look at the core of what OrboFi is that powering imagination to generate assets. And imagination and knowledge is literally so far the most decentralized asset in the world. So pretty much like someone out there in one of the most remote areas in the world can have one of the craziest imagination. Yeah. And here all of a sudden, like they can I can actually articulate it. I can make it real, and I can perhaps earn money while doing it. So it actually empowering imagination and incentivizing imagination. The other thing we're really excited about is that especially when you mine imagination, let's say you and I create an asset, like how can we pull prompt? So that is one of our biggest feature coming next that will come along the mobile app. But again, someone from in a remote area, somewhere like two people or more can create and merge imaginations in real time and can create the same asset. They can together monetize. We're really excited about this.
Wow, looking forward to it. And I was looking through the platform and I saw that there's like a launch that's happening right now or this week. I'd love for you to talk more about exactly where your team is at right now and what is happening.
Absolutely. So thankfully we conducted our fundraising, our seed and private sale. So thankfully we raised capital from some heavyweights in the industry and some big investors. And we have the token sale actually starting tomorrow. So that's from a public sale perspective, and we're here in the public markets next week, so that's quite exciting. But primarily as well to have in terms of the token, not only to enable people to use it on the platform, but also we can start incentivizing people who create assets and create models. We launched the app about 4 months ago. Now we are launching the currency, the in-app currency that powers that economy of production of AI assets and distribution of AI assets. Exciting times. Thankfully, the community has been very supportive. They've been, I would say, very hyped about the upcoming launch. So we're very grateful for that. Yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And I'd love to know a little bit more about it. For example, when I looked at the ChatGPT APIs and stuff, they have a few cents per message or per API calls. Does that Is that how that works with the in-app currency, or is it required to create assets, or how does it provide value to the creators in the ecosystem?
Absolutely. So exactly like you said. So of course we do have free versions, and if there's and OrboFi will remain always free to a certain extent.
Amazing.
Meaning you can generate, we can generate up to 25. So far, can generate up to 100 actually assets for free. We will be, and that's for us to go broader. That was part of the launch. But I think the main utility of the token is that you would need the token to purchase what we call OrBox, which is the main off-chain compute credits, and pretty much that's what you need to generate assets or create AI models. If you want to utilize another person's factory, a model, for example, if you create a model around isometric cities and you charge, for example, $10 on it, $10 for it. So pretty much I would need that $10 in OB tokens if you want to utilize it. So that's how it powers those transactions in terms of utilizing AI models, utilizing factories, and of course, it is the main medium of exchange. If you want to purchase or sell my AI generated assets, it is all being powered by the OB token. And primarily the reason why is, especially when we look at, the AI generated asset layer, is that there needs to be a decentralized currency that actually powers that economy. That's one of our main goals, especially when it comes with incentives and monetization. There needs to be a trustless, seamless, distributed, and decentralized way of monetizing and transacting. And hence, having these transactions on chain is extremely important and extremely efficient as well. In a nutshell.
Very cool. And I love that you can create AI models for others to use and sort of work as a community, not just creating a picture or something. It's much more than that. So I'm very excited to see how it grows out.
Yeah, I'll tell you some definitely like a long way to go. But we'll make it step by step until we actually go like dominate the space, dominate the AI generated asset space, but just be the central hub of AI assets in Web3.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. And just from the rate of growth, from January until now, it seems like it's just straight up with AI. Following the industry in general and the adoption of it, do you see, the next 6 months and the end of 2023, just continuing to have a major adoption of this kind of technology?
Absolutely. So I'd say it's exponential. Perhaps in the next 2 years, we will see some like getting flat a bit. But even now, if we look at the number of users that use AI models like ChatGPT, there's like for large language models. But if we look at visual content, it's about, in total, it's about, I think, 150 million worldwide. I'd say in the next 3 years, there will be at least 2 billion people.
Wow.
Using these. And that's when we look at the current trajectory and how it goes. Mm-hmm. We are hitting that mark, and pretty much it will be integrated into anyone's phone. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much where we'll see this growth going. And then we're going to see that like flat, but it's growing really fast.
Yeah. Very exciting, Benji. Thank you for all the insights. I'm going to test out the AI generation and take a look at the launch as well that's happening. I'll put the links for that in the description. Is there any specific place that people can learn more about how the generative AI works, or just try it out, or get in touch with the communities that are already using OrboFi?
Absolutely. So first step, they can, like the main central hub is to go to orbofi.com. And that's when they can create their account, start generating assets, start creating their AI models. Of course, for the community, if people have any questions, want to learn more, so that's in our communities on Telegram or Discord. And we do have also a quite detailed documentation. If you go to wiki.orbofi.com/learn, you will get all the info you need. We have quite an extensive and detailed documentation here. And, that gives more info about the team and the tech and all that. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Benji. All the best with everything OrboFi moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thanks, Ashton. I'll catch you soon.